This is a story about arrogance, awakening, and the moment when a man's carefully constructed world crumbles to reveal what truly matters. When wealth meets wisdom and pride meets parenthood. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments below what you think about second chances. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories that will change how you see the world. Now, let's begin. The mirror reflected success tonight. Nathan Cole stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse, adjusting his platinum cufflinks with practiced precision. The city sprawled beneath him like a kingdom he'd conquered, each glittering light a testament to his empire. His tailored tuxedo, worth more than most people's cars, fit like armor crafted by angels. Tonight was the night he'd been planning for months, the annual Children's Future Foundation Gala, where the city's elite gathered to write checks and polish their reputations. As the founder and CEO of Cole Dynamics, the fastest-growing tech company in the country, Nathan wasn't just attending. He was the keynote speaker, the man of the hour, the success story everyone wanted to touch. But beneath the confidence, something gnawed at him, a restlessness that expensive whiskey couldn't numb and achievement couldn't silence. "You know what would make tonight perfect?" Tyler Morrison, his PR manager, had said 3 weeks earlier, leaning back in his chair with that calculating smile that made Nathan billions. A little nostalgia, a touch of humanity. Nathan had raised an eyebrow. Meaning? Your ex, Sophie Lane? Remember her? The one who used to work at the coffee shop near your old startup office. The name hit Nathan like a physical blow, though he'd never admit it. Sophie. The woman who'd believed in him when he was nobody, who'd slipped him free coffee and encouragement when he couldn't afford either. The woman he'd discarded the moment success came knocking. What about her? Nathan had asked, keeping his voice steady. Tyler's grin widened. Invite her. Show the world that Nathan Cole doesn't forget where he came from, that he's evolved, mature, magnanimous. The headlines write themselves. And so, in a moment of ego-driven impulse, Nathan had done it. He'd sent the invitation, expecting nothing. Sophie Lane was probably married with kids by now, living some ordinary life in the suburbs. She'd never show up to his world of champagne and cameras. He'd been wrong about many things in his life. He was about to be wrong about this too. The Grandview Hotel ballroom glittered like a jewel box. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbows across marble floors, while ice sculptures and towering floral arrangements created an atmosphere of impossible luxury. 500 of the city's most powerful people mingled beneath silk draping and orchestral music, their conversations a symphony of influence and money. Nathan stood near the entrance, Rebecca Hartley draped elegantly on his arm. A former Miss California turned lifestyle influencer, Rebecca was everything the tabloids expected from a billionaire's girlfriend. Tall, blonde, stunning, and utterly devoted to being seen with him. "Darling, you look tense," Rebecca whispered, her manicured fingers tracing his lapel. "This is your night. Relax." Nathan forced a smile. He'd given this speech 100 times in his head. The poor kid from nowhere who built an empire, the humanitarian who gave back, the man who never forgot his roots. Lies wrapped in expensive silk. "Ladies and gentlemen," the event coordinator announced, "dinner will be served in 10 minutes. Please find your seats." That's when it happened. The conversations didn't stop all at once. It was more like a wave starting near the entrance and rippling outward. Heads turned, whispers began, even the orchestra seemed to pause. Nathan followed the collective gaze and felt his world tilt off its axis. Sophie Lane stood in the doorway. She wore a deep emerald dress that hugged her curves and flowed like water, her dark hair swept into an elegant updo that revealed the graceful line of her neck. But it wasn't her beauty that stole the breath from the room, it was her presence. She carried herself like royalty, like someone who'd walked through fire and emerged as pure gold. Beside her, holding her hands, were 2 children, a boy and a girl, maybe 4 years old, dressed in matching navy blue outfits. The boy wore a tiny tuxedo that made him look like a miniature gentleman. The girl had on a velvet dress with a white sash, her hair in perfect ringlets tied with a bow. They had Nathan's eyes. "Oh my God," Rebecca breathed, her grip tightening on Nathan's arm. Who is that? Nathan couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, because he knew exactly who they were. The twins he'd never met, the children he'd pretended didn't exist. 4 years earlier, Sophie had stood in his cramped startup office, tears streaming down her face, her hands shaking as she held a pregnancy test. "I'm pregnant," she'd whispered. Twins. Nathan had stared at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. He was 26, broke, living on ramen and dreams. His company was 3 months from either breakthrough or bankruptcy. The last thing he needed was responsibility. "Are you sure?" he'd asked, already knowing the answer from her expression. "I'm sure." He'd sat down heavily, his head in his hands. "Sophie, I can't. Not now. I'm not ready for this." "I'm not asking you to be ready," she'd said quietly. "I'm telling you because you deserve to know." The silence stretched between them like a chasm. "I'll help financially," he'd finally said. "Whatever you need." She'd looked at him with such sadness that it haunted him still. "I don't want your money, Nathan. I wanted your heart." And then she'd left, walked out of his life like she'd never been there at all. Now she was walking back in, and the twins were no longer invisible consequences. They were real, beautiful, undeniable truth. The ballroom buzzed with energy as Sophie and the children moved through the crowd. Nathan watched from across the room as people approached her, drawn by curiosity and the magnetic pull of her quiet confidence. "Excuse me," a woman in pearls said, kneeling to the children's level. "Aren't you two the most beautiful things I've ever seen?" The little girl, shy but polite, curtsied. "Thank you, Ma'am." The boy, more confident, stuck out his hand. "I'm Liam, and this is my sister Ava. We're 4 3/4." Laughter rippled through the gathering crowd. These weren't just any children. They were poised, well-mannered, clearly raised with love and attention. Nathan felt Tyler appear beside him. "Holy shit," his PR manager whispered. "Are those—" "Yes," Nathan said flatly. "Dude, you never told me you had kids." "I don't." Tyler stared at him. "What do you mean you don't? They look exactly like you." Nathan watched Sophie crouch down to help Ava with her napkin, the gesture so natural and loving it made his chest ache. "I mean, I was never their father." "Nathan," Rebecca's voice cut through his thoughts like ice. "What is going on? Who are these people?" Before he could answer, Sophie's eyes found his across the room. For a moment, time stopped. 4 years of silence, of wondering, of regret, passed between them in a single look. Then she smiled, not the warm, adoring smile he remembered from their past. This was something else, polite, distant, the smile of a woman who'd learned to protect herself. She began walking toward him, the twins flanking her like tiny bodyguards. "Nathan," she said when she reached him, her voice steady and calm. "Thank you for the invitation." "Sophie," his voice came out rougher than intended. "You look incredible. Thank you." She glanced at Rebecca, who was staring at the children with barely concealed shock. "I hope it's all right that I brought guests. The invitation said +2. +2. Not plus twins, not plus children." She wasn't going to make this easy for him. "Of course," he managed. "These are your children," she said simply. "Ava and Liam, say hello to Mr. Cole." The twins looked up at him with identical expressions of polite curiosity. Ava stepped forward and offered a small curtsy. "Hello, Mr. Cole. Thank you for inviting us to your party." Liam, not to be outdone, stuck out his hand for a handshake. "Nice to meet you, sir. Is this your house?" "It's a hotel," Nathan said, kneeling to their level. Up close, the resemblance was even more startling. They had his eyes, his chin, even his stubborn cowlick. "But I'm glad you're here." "Are you the rich man Mommy told us about?" Ava asked with the brutal honesty of childhood. Sophie's cheeks flushed pink. "Ava, that's not—" "It's okay," Nathan said quickly. He looked at his daughter, with wonder. "I suppose I am." "Mommy says rich people should help other people," Liam added. "That's why we're here tonight." Nathan felt something crack open in his chest. Your mommy is very smart. Rebecca cleared her throat pointedly. Nathan, aren't you going to introduce me? He stood suddenly aware of how this must look. His girlfriend, his ex, his secret children. The situation was spiraling beyond his control. Sophie, this is Rebecca Hartley. Rebecca, Sophie Lane. The women shook hands with the kind of polite tension that could cut glass. And these are Sophie's children, he added, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. Sophie's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Disappointment? Anger? He couldn't tell. Dinner is served, the coordinator announced, saving him from further explanation. The dinner was torture. Nathan sat at the head table, Rebecca beside him, while Sophie and the twins were seated 3 tables away. He couldn't concentrate on the conversations around him, couldn't taste the 5-course meal that probably cost more than most families spent on groceries in a month. Instead, he watched Sophie. She was radiant, animated, completely at ease despite being surrounded by people who could buy small countries. She helped the twins with their food, laughed at their whispered jokes, and engaged graciously with the other guests at her table. She'd changed. The shy coffee shop girl he'd known was gone, replaced by this confident, self-assured woman who commanded respect simply by existing. "You're staring," Rebecca hissed in his ear. "I'm just obsessing over your ex and her children. Yes, I can see that." Nathan turned to her, really looked at her for the first time that evening. Rebecca was beautiful, successful, everything he'd thought he wanted. But sitting there, watching Sophie parent the children he'd abandoned, he felt the hollowness of his choices. "Those aren't just her children," he said quietly. Rebecca's face went white. "What?" "They're mine too." The words hung between them like a bomb with the pin pulled. Rebecca stared at him, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. "You have children," she whispered. "I have twins. Have." He rubbed his forehead. "It's complicated." "Complicated?" Rebecca's voice rose, causing heads to turn. She quickly lowered it. "You have 4-year-old twins, and you never told me?" "I didn't know they'd be here tonight." "But you knew they existed." Nathan didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Rebecca stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the marble floor. "I need some air." She left him sitting there, alone with his thoughts and the weight of 4 years' worth of cowardice. During the cocktail hour between dinner and the auction, Nathan found himself standing on the hotel's terrace, looking out at the city lights. The cool evening air did nothing to calm the storm in his chest. "Hiding?" He turned to find Sophie behind him, a glass of champagne in her hand. "Where are the kids?" he asked. "Inside, charming everyone at the dessert table. Ava's explaining her theory about why chocolate cake is a vegetable, and Liam's demonstrating his new magic trick." Despite everything, Nathan smiled. "Magic trick? He makes carrots disappear. Very impressive, though I suspect sleight of hand." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the sounds of the party drifting out from behind them. "You look good," Sophie said finally. "Success suits you." "Does it?" Nathan turned to face her fully. "Because I feel like I'm suffocating." She studied his face in the moonlight. "Money doesn't buy happiness, Nathan. I tried to tell you that years ago." "You did." He swallowed hard. "Sophie, I—" "Don't," she said softly. "Not here. Not tonight." "When then?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I didn't come here for you, Nathan. I came for them. They asked about their father, and I wanted them to see that he was successful, that he was someone they could be proud of." The words hit him like a physical blow. "And now?" "Now I'm not sure what I want them to see." Before he could respond, Liam came barreling through the terrace doors, his little tuxedo jacket flying behind him. "Mommy! Mommy! The lady with the sparkly dress said I could ring the bell for the auction." Sophie's face lit up. "Did she now? Can I? Please?" "Of course, sweetheart. But where's your sister?" "She's teaching the old man with the funny moustache how to fold napkins into swans." Sophie laughed, the sound like music. "Of course she is." Liam suddenly noticed Nathan standing there. "Hi, Mr. Cole. Do you want to see my magic trick?" Nathan's throat tightened. I'd love to. The next 10 minutes were the best of Nathan's life. Liam performed his disappearing carrot trick with the serious concentration of a professional magician. Ava joined them, shyly showing Nathan the origami swan she'd made from her napkin. They told him about their school, their favorite books, their pet goldfish named Mr. Bubbles. They were perfect. Bright, funny, kind, curious. Everything he'd missed, everything he'd given up. "Time to go inside, babies," Sophie said gently. "The auction's starting." As they walked back into the ballroom, Liam slipped his small hand into Nathan's. "Mr. Cole, will you sit with us for the auction?" Nathan looked at Sophie, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "I'd be honored," he said. The auction was in full swing when everything changed. Nathan sat between the twins, Ava on his left explaining the difference between a bid and a really big bid, and Liam on his right critiquing the auctioneer's bow tie. "Our next item," the auctioneer announced, "is a week at the Maldives resort, donated by the Hartley family." Nathan glanced toward Rebecca, who was standing near the back of the room, her face stony. She'd been avoiding him since their confrontation at dinner. "Do I hear 5,000? Paddles went up around the room. 10,000? More paddles. 15? The bidding continued, the price climbing higher and higher. Nathan wasn't paying attention. He was watching Ava try to catch the light from the chandeliers in her cupped hands, completely mesmerized. 50,000, going once, going twice, 100,000. The voice came from behind them. Nathan turned to see Rebecca standing, her paddle raised high, her eyes locked on his. The room fell silent. 100,000 from Miss Hartley, the auctioneer said, clearly delighted. "Do I hear 110? 200,000. This time the voice was Nathan's. He'd raised his paddle without conscious thought. Rebecca's face went white, then red. The room began to buzz with whispers. 200,000 from Mr. Cole, the auctioneer announced nervously. "Do I hear 210? 500,000. Rebecca's voice carried across the room like a challenge. She was bidding against him. In front of everyone, in front of Sophie, in front of his children. Nathan felt Sophie's hand on his arm. "Nathan, don't." But it was too late. The damage was done. The room was watching, waiting. Rebecca was making a scene, and he was part of it. $1 million, he said, standing. Gasps filled the ballroom. Rebecca's face crumpled. Even the auctioneer looked stunned. "Nathan," Sophie whispered urgently. "This isn't—" $1 million, he repeated, his voice carrying across the silent room. "And I'm not bidding on the vacation." The confusion was palpable. Nathan walked to the front of the room, taking the microphone from the surprised auctioneer. "I'm bidding on the chance to make an announcement," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos in his heart. 4 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I let pride and fear convince me to walk away from the best thing that ever happened to me. He found Sophie in the crowd. She was staring at him with wide eyes, her hand covering her mouth. I thought success meant never looking back, never admitting weakness, never choosing love over ambition. His voice cracked. I was wrong. The room was completely silent now, 500 people hanging on every word. "Sophie Lane, you are the strongest, most beautiful person I've ever known." And Ava and Liam, he looked at his children, who were watching him with identical expressions of wonder. "You are my heart walking around outside my body, and I've been a fool to pretend otherwise." Tears were streaming down Sophie's face now. Other people in the room were crying too. "I don't deserve your forgiveness," Nathan continued. "I don't deserve a second chance, but I'm asking for one anyway, because I love you, all of you. And I want to spend the rest of my life proving that I'm not the man who walked away. I'm the man who's fighting to come home." He set down the microphone and walked back to his table. The room erupted in applause, but he didn't hear it. He was looking at Sophie, at the way she was looking at him, like she was seeing him for the first time in years. Ava tugged on his jacket. "Mr. Cole, are you our daddy?" The question stopped his heart. He knelt down, gathering both children in his arms. "I'd like to be," he whispered. "If that's okay with you." "Yes," Liam shouted, throwing his arms around Nathan's neck. "I always wanted a daddy." "Me too," Ava added, not to be outdone. "And you smell like the good soap." Nathan laughed through his tears, holding them close. When he looked up, Sophie was standing in front of him, tears streaming down her face. "That was quite a speech," she said softly. "I meant every word." She was quiet for a long moment, studying his face. "I'm not the same person I was 4 years ago, Nathan. I'm not going to just fall back into your life like nothing happened. I know. I have conditions. Name them. The children come first. Always. Every decision, every plan, every choice. They're the priority. Yes. I'm not interested in your money, or your status, or your world. I want the man, not the empire. You have him, and I need time. We all need time. This isn't a fairy tale where everything gets fixed with one grand gesture." Nathan stood, still holding the twins. "I'll wait as long as you need. I'll prove myself every day if I have to." Sophie reached out and touched his face, her thumb wiping away a tear he didn't know he'd shed. "Then let's start with breakfast," she said. "Tomorrow. Just the 4 of us." "Just the 4 of us," he repeated. And for the first time in 4 years, Nathan Cole felt like he was home. 1 year later, the playground was busy on Saturday morning, filled with children's laughter and parents chatting on benches. Nathan pushed Ava on the swing, while Liam climbed the monkey bars nearby, his tongue poking out in concentration. "Higher, Daddy," Ava called out, her hair flying behind her like a banner. "Any higher and you'll be in space." Nathan laughed, but he gave her another push. Sophie approached with a picnic basket and a blanket, looking relaxed in jeans and a sweater. The sight of her still took his breath away, but now it was the everyday moments that meant the most. The way she hummed while making breakfast, the way she fell asleep reading to the twins, the way she looked at him like he was exactly where he belonged. "Lunch is ready," she called out. 5 more minutes, Liam shouted from the top of the jungle gym. 2 more minutes, Sophie countered with the authority of someone who'd been negotiating with 4-year-olds for years. Nathan lifted Ava out of the swing and set her on the ground. She immediately ran to her mother, chattering about how high she'd gone and whether birds could see her from up there. "How was your morning?" Sophie asked, slipping her arm through his as they walked to the picnic area. "Perfect," Nathan said, and meant it. His company was doing better than ever, but he'd restructured his entire life around what mattered. No more 80-hour weeks. No more missing bedtime stories for conference calls. No more choosing ambition over love. "Daddy, will you teach me to throw a football after lunch?" Liam asked, already digging into his sandwich. "Absolutely," Nathan said. "But first, let me tell you about the time I tried to impress your mother by throwing a football and accidentally hit the hot dog cart." "You did not," Ava giggled. "I absolutely did, and she still agreed to go out with me." "I felt sorry for you," Sophie said with a straight face, "and the hot dog vendor." As they sat there on the blanket, surrounded by the chaos of an ordinary Saturday, Nathan felt something he'd never experienced in all his years of success: complete contentment. He'd learned that wealth wasn't measured in bank accounts or stock options. It was measured in moments like this, in the sound of his children's laughter, in the way Sophie's eyes lit up when she smiled, in the knowledge that he'd found his way home to the only things that truly mattered. Sometimes the greatest success stories aren't about what you gain, they're about what you choose not to lose. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you get a second chance to choose love over everything else. Nathan Cole was lucky. He'd learned that just in time. What do you think about Nathan's journey? Have you ever had to choose between ambition and love? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind us what really matters in life.